For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic.
Were they? Were they really? Hi, I'm Jordan. Welcome to the show, wherein we ask the question, were the Jedi really good guys? I can already hear the sound of angry fans storming the comments section.
As if millions of voices suddenly cried out in terror.
But hear me out. The Jedi were undoubtedly protagonists, but that doesn't automatically make them good guys. Walter White, aka Heisenberg, is a protagonist, but he makes meth and kills people. Frank Castle, aka the Punisher, aka Captain Revenge Fantasy, is a protagonist, but he's a mass murderer at best and a domestic terrorist at worst. Being a protagonist doesn't automatically equate to goodness. Put another way,
If you are a bad guy, but this does not mean you're a bad guy,
then just because you're the good guy, it doesn't mean you're a good guy. But wait, Jordan, all your videos so far have been about how great Mandalorians are, and now you're calling the Jedi's morality into question? You might be a bit biased. What a baseless accusation. How dare you? Okay, maybe I am a bit biased towards my boys in Beskar, but I'm not the only one with the point of view that the Jedi aren't good guys.
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil!
Personally, I've used this line to point out how silly someone else's argument sounds, and it's often held up as an example of the wonky dialogue that plagued the prequels. But this doesn't mean that Anakin's point was without merit. Slavery. It's bad. Now, I know what you're thinking.
Why would you say something so controversial yet so brave?
But it's true. The concept of owning another person is morally reprehensible and has no place in civilized society. This view is also present in the Star Wars galaxy, with Padme expressing dismay upon learning that Anakin and his mother are slaves in Episode 1. Slavery is horrendous. Even if someone doesn't own slaves themselves, knowingly benefiting from the labor of slaves is morally repugnant. We can all agree on that, right? So why do the Jedi have zero issue with slavery when it benefits them? Let's be clear, as much as I love the clone troopers as characters, and as generally happy as they seem to be, they are slaves. The clones were bought and paid for, and based on conversations in the Deserter episode of Clone Wars Season 2, the clones are forbidden from quitting their service to the Republic or to the Jedi. The Jedi's disturbing leadership of the clone army goes beyond their willingness to lead an army of men bred to fight and die. The strategies they employ also show a complete disregard for those same men. Charging straight at fortified positions. Jumping into the midst of enemy formations. Holding positions in the open with little or no cover. These are all tactics that can work if you're a Jedi and capable of deflecting blaster fire. However, the clone troopers that are obligated to follow the Jedi can't deflect blaster fire, and pretty much just have to cross their fingers and hope they don't get riddled with blaster fire. Focusing their tactics around their own strengths to the detriment of the clones is painfully self-centered, and doing so in a way that results in unnecessary death is sociopathic. Granted, it was a war. It's right there in the name. And in war, soldiers die. But that doesn't justify throwing them into the grinder just so you can get close enough to the enemy to show off your sweet sword skills. In moment-to-moment interactions, the Jedi treat the men under their command with respect. However, that doesn't justify the disregard their tactics show for the lives of the clones.
Some of you may die, but it's a sacrifice I am willing to make.
This kind of behavior is actually consistent for the Jedi, as they seem to show a general disregard for most other beings. The Jedi's willingness to lead a slave army without complaint likely stems from their belief that they have the right to subvert the free will of others in order to achieve their own goals. The Jedi are willing to override another being's right to self-determination simply because it makes things easier for themselves. Granted, there are plenty of instances where the use of mind tricks seems fairly reasonable.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
However, an action doesn't become morally justifiable simply because it's convenient. Mind tricks become even more horrifying when used on the strong-willed instead of the weak-minded.
Using the Force to compel a strong mind to cooperate is risky.
There is a danger that his mind could be destroyed in the process.
So, surely the Jedi would never...
Now, I will take you. No! Get out of my head!
There's no real one-to-one comparison for mind tricks in the real world. However, they do fall neatly under the definition of coercion. Coercion is the practice of forcing another party to act in an involuntary manner by use of threats or force. Jedi don't just use force, they literally use the Force to get other beings to act in an involuntary way to get what they want. They also use threats, but we'll get to that later. To make things worse, it's not just the free will of others that the Jedi disregard. The Jedi were right to pursue and apprehend Zam Wesell, but look at the tactic Obi-Wan uses to capture her. He sets himself up as bait to lure Zam into lightsaber range so he can disarm her. Literally. With all the powers and abilities at a Jedi's disposal, casually maiming someone isn't a morally justifiable way to apprehend a suspect. The only reasoning for it that I can think of is that it makes things easier for the Jedi. Imagine if a police officer shot someone in the knee because it would make them easier to apprehend. Would that be morally justifiable? In the Star Wars universe, there are cybernetic limbs to replace lost appendages, but the ability to mend a traumatic wound doesn't justify inflicting a traumatic wound. A gunshot wound to the knee can also be mended, but that still wouldn't justify using it as a means of apprehending a suspect. This willingness to do anything to achieve their goals seems to indicate that the Jedi believe their actions are justified, and that the ends justify the means. If I'm being honest, this isn't terribly surprising. By design, members of the Jedi Order are inducted at a very young age so they can be fully indoctrinated into the Jedi Code.
Children's minds are more easily accepting of indoctrination.
It's for this reason why Yoda and the Jedi Council originally didn't want to train Anakin. He had developed too much of his own independent worldview, and they feared what would happen if someone was trained in the Jedi arts without being fully indoctrinated in their ways. In their defense, they had a point. As a result of every member being steeped in the same strict ideology, the Jedi Order that we saw in the Clone Wars and the prequels was drowning in its own dogma and self-righteousness. Don't believe me? Take a look at the Zilla Beast incident. In Season 2 of the Clone Wars, the Clone Army and the Jedi were fighting on Malastare on behalf of the Dugs in order to secure an alliance and, more importantly, to secure access to Malastare's vital fuel supplies to keep the war effort going. After deploying an experimental weapon, a massive sinkhole opened, unleashing the Zillo Beast. The Dugs demanded it be killed, as Zillo Beasts had hunted their ancient ancestors, and their myths said one day one would return to destroy their civilization. Mace Windu, on the other hand, decides the creature should be spared since he believes it's the last of its species, going so far as to physically threaten the leader of the Dugs, and by extension, threaten the treaty with Malastare and the Republic's access to their fuel supplies. Mace was willing to risk the viability of the Republic's war efforts across the galaxy and to physically threaten the leader of a sovereign planet simply because he wasn't getting his way. At the time, Malastare was not a Republic world, and the leader of the Dugs had declared the issue with the Zillo Beast to be an internal matter. On top of that, the Zillo Beast was a skyscraper-sized apex predator with a history of attacking and destroying cities. The creature posed an immense potential threat, and the Jedi had zero authority to act in the matter. Mace Windu digging his heels in and refusing to let anything happen to the Zillo Beast doesn't strike me as him taking a moral stand. It strikes me as him having a bit of a fit. He's a leading member of the Jedi Council, and as such, he's used to being listened to. But now he's not only being ignored, he's also not getting his way.
Unacceptable! Unacceptable!
If only the Dugs had tried to dismember or enslave the Zillo Beast instead. I don't want to get too far out into the weeds on a moral discussion over whose proposed treatment of the Zillo Beast was correct. What I want to do is point out the hypocrisy we see on display. Mace claims they have to protect the Zillo Beast because it's an innocent creature, but weren't the clones innocent until the Jedi led them into battle and took their innocence away? He argues that they can't kill the Zillo Beast because it's not the Jedi way, but apparently threats of violence and death are the Jedi way. Even among the Masters of the Jedi Council, there's little moral consistency. Mace Windu says the war is less important than preserving one innocent life, even if that innocent life is a Godzilla-sized threat with a history of raising civilizations. But when stranded on Felucia, Obi-Wan says the Jedi can't possibly take the time to help innocent farmers being terrorized by pirates.
We couldn't help even if we wanted to.
The war must come first. My point here is that what the Jedi view as morally acceptable seems to fluctuate to fit whatever their agenda is at any given moment. Just look at how quickly Mace Windu goes from
"We're keepers of the peace, not soldiers,"
to willingly leading men into battle. Hypocritical and open to using coercion and violence, the Jedi seem willing to do anything to promote their own agenda, even at the expense of others. So why were they not constantly running afoul of the law? Because they used their considerable powers in the service of those who wrote the laws. The Jedi serve the Republic Senate, but in what capacity? Well, they seem to be general problem solvers, acting as investigators or negotiators, particularly aggressive negotiators.
Aggressive negotiations, what's that?
Well, negotiations with a lightsaber.
That's a lighthearted way to phrase it for a discussion over dinner, but it looks a little different in practice.
These Federation types are cowards. The negotiations will be short.
We dare not go against the Jedi.
But surely, these aggressive negotiations only happen under extreme circumstances, like the illegal blockade of a planet, right?
Master Skywalker and I hold what we call aggressive negotiations all the time.
Oh. It seems that when the Senate dispatches Jedi negotiators, it's their way of saying, you're gonna do what we say, or else. Imagine if US ambassadors took a sidearm into every meeting they went to, and there was a tacit threat that they would use it if they didn't get their way. Does that sound like the representative of a responsible government? It sounds a bit more like,
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
The Jedi were willfully engaged as the strong-arm enforcers of a corrupt government. At one point, it's even cited as a reason for many systems leaving the Republic to join the Confederacy over the course of the Clone Wars.
As a separatist, didn't you create this war?
Would it surprise you to know that many of the people you call separatists feel the same way about the Republic and the Jedi?
This negative view of the Jedi isn't held exclusively by separatists either. A large portion of Ahsoka's character arc in Season 7 of the Clone Wars is her coming to the realization that, not only is the Jedi's view of themselves not shared by the galaxy at large, many in the Republic have very legitimate reasons for hating the Jedi.
The alien protecting Zero blasted the engine of an ascending cargo transport. The ship went spiraling out of control. The Jedi went into action, tried to gain control of the ship. There was a populated landing platform right in the path of the ship, but the Jedi steered it clear of that, right into the portal wall. And on the other side of that wall was our home.
Mom and Dad saw it coming. They got Rafa and I out. But they weren't so lucky.
To underline the point, look at this scene from Revenge of the Sith.
And the Jedi Rebellion has been foiled.
What's happened?
The Chancellor's been elaborating on a plot by the Jedi to overthrow the Senate.
And the remaining Jedi will be hunted down and defeated.
When Palpatine makes the claim that the Jedi are traitors, there's no pushback. In a room full of people who would have had the most opportunities to know the Jedi on a personal level, Palpatine's decree that the Jedi would be hunted down is actually met with applause. Maybe that's because they know that trying to take over the Senate is something the Jedi would try.
The Jedi Council would have to take control of the Senate in order to secure a peaceful transition.
We've already seen in Episode 1 that the Republic's Senate is more than capable of conducting a rapid vote to elect a new Chancellor in extremis. So why would the Jedi ever need to take control? Imagine if, in the wake of the 2020 election, the FBI had said, "Whoa, okay guys, this has all gotten out of hand. But don't worry, because we're in charge of the government now.
That's not how it works. That's not how any of this works.
Looking at all of this together, Anakin's point of view starts to sound a lot less ridiculous.
I should have known the Jedi were plotting to take over. Anakin, Chancellor Palpatine is evil! From my point of view, the Jedi are evil!
But maybe what the Jedi were doing was justified. After all, they were facing down the existential threat of the Sith dominating civilization, destroying the Jedi, and throwing the galaxy into darkness. Except they weren't, because the Jedi didn't know about any of that. At least not at first. At the beginning of the prequels, as far as the Jedi Order is concerned,
the Sith have been extinct for a millennia.
This means that the way we see the Jedi behaving prior to the Clone Wars, and outside of their role as generals, is not a behavior change in response to a threat. It's simply who they are as an organization. Were the Jedi good guys? No, they weren't. They led an army of slaves to enforce the will of a corrupt government. They were willing to use violence, the threat of violence, dismemberment, and the suppression of free will to achieve their goals, and every member of their order was deliberately inducted and indoctrinated at a young age to ensure compliance. Strip away the veneer of dashing heroics set to a John Williams score, and those aren't guardians of peace and justice. Those are enforcers in an Orwellian hellscape. The Jedi were not good guys. But that's the point. An overarching theme of the prequels was the cost of and damage caused by stagnation, complacency, and corruption. Damage that even the Jedi couldn't escape. The Jedi Order may have been founded on the ideals of selflessly safeguarding peace and justice, but after centuries spent in service to politicians and bureaucrats, those ideals became eroded and twisted. In fact, I believe that the Jedi's continued exposure to the corruption of the Senate is what led to their slow drift from the light side of the Force, and to their abilities to use the Force being diminished.
I think it is time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished.
If a Jedi can drift away from the light due to continued exposure to hate and anger felt in the Force, surely the same can be true of corruption. The Jedi Order, as we see it in the prequels, serves as a stark contrast to the kind of Jedi we see Luke become in Return of the Jedi. Where Yoda and Obi-Wan saw death as the only solution to the problem of Darth Vader, Luke saw the possibility of redemption. The Jedi weren't good guys, and they were engaged in morally questionable actions, but they weren't wholly evil. I'm very hesitant to say that after pointing out that they used slavery, but it's true. Just take a look at the examples of protagonists I used earlier. Walter White cooked meth, but he started cooking meth because he was dying and wanted to make enough money to leave behind for his family to be secure. Frank Castle murders whoever he judges to be evil, but he does it because he knows the pain of having your loved ones ripped away from you, and he wants to stop those who would do that to others. This doesn't justify the actions of either man, but it highlights that there's far more nuance to morality than simply good versus evil or light versus dark. And it's that nuance that brings us to an interesting point. If the Jedi weren't wholly good, does that mean that the Sith weren't wholly evil? Oh, hell no!
In a galaxy at war, Savage, there is only one way to get the attention of the Jedi. Slaughter of the innocent, mercilessly and without compromise.
The Jedi Order, as we saw it in the prequels, was greatly diminished, but unlike the Sith, the Jedi Code was built upon a foundation of selflessness. And despite everything, that selflessness still managed to shine through, for the most part. Their intentions were good, but as I understand it, that's what the road to hell is paved with. The Jedi performed morally objectionable acts in service to a woefully corrupt democracy, but the Sith tore down democracy to institute their own authoritarian military state. Let's be absolutely clear on something. Democracy, good. Authoritarianism, bad. Trying to overthrow democracy for your own personal gain? Also, bad. If you think I missed or misinterpreted something, let me know in the comments below. If you liked this video, consider liking and subscribing. And if you want to see more content from Wherein, you can check out my links in the description below. That's all from me for now, so until next time, thanks for watching.